Hi, I'm Matt from hockeyreviews.ca, and this is one of the reviews that I've been asked about a lot for people wondering when these were coming out. This is the True Custom Hockey Gloves review. Obviously, this is specifically a 4-roll. Well, I shouldn't say obviously because it is all covered behind this, but when you pull this back, it is a 4-roll, and this has a custom cuff on it. Now, you can get these at Pure Hockey, and this review wouldn't have happened without the help of Pure Hockey, who I reached out to and said, I know you have this program, I'm very interested in it, is there any way we could work together for it? And they said, build a custom set, we'll send them to you so you can do a review and make content on. And I know people have already bought in a couple sets because of my videos. They've reached out to me for questions on it. Hopefully this will lead people down that road again and shows all about these custom gloves and what is there. Firstly, before I jump into anything and what we're going to cover, obviously there are a lot of custom specs on these gloves that you can get. I tried to spec this out in an interesting way. Obviously the colors are like, which I'll get to later, but I can't cover everything on the custom specs specifically for like the palms. So I'll try to do that the best as I can. It's very hard to do that because obviously there's a tons of different combinations and I couldn't get like, oh, can you make it with this palm, then the other one with that palm. For an overview of this review, I'll have two parts to it. The first part will be the whole customization process as well as the ordering process with True, which has with Pure, which has a couple interesting kind of steps on there to make sure you're getting what you actually ordered and what you want, and to confirm some things. And then I'll do the actual glove review itself, go over my thoughts on it, the specs, and kind of what I would recommend in it, and just what I think for these gloves overall. I've been reviewing a bunch of gloves recently, and these are a very enticing option. As well as a caveat for this, when I got these, the political climate in Canada and US wasn't as terrible, and you could figure ways to get these in Canada through Pure. You can still do that. It's a lot harder. Border stuff is annoying. What can you do? I know I'm a Canadian and these are from an American store, but support Pure for this and do what you can to get these if you're really interested in Canada.
So we are going to look at a custom set of gloves, but remember when you're shopping at Pure Hockey for these custom set of gloves, use the link that is in my description. I post it everywhere to Pure Hockey to help support the channel, as well as to tell Pure Hockey that you are coming from Hockey Reviews and we should keep making stuff like this. So when you get on their site, under custom hockey gloves, you have these True ones, which we are going to look at specifically. We are going to mostly dive into the 4-roll pros, which are these right here, but we will take a quick look at the end of the Catalyst pros to look at some of the spec. Fun thing about this customizer is the amount of choices you have and the color choices you have. I think fantastic, but going through here, you can really see how you can make a lot of different designs that you really kind of want to do something interesting on. So I did all the crazy blues, which I'll have a mapping of all those blues on my website. Won't go through here, but for this one, we'll do something more fun, and we will do a San Jose Sharks color. So on the upper wrist, we will do a teal like this, and we get on the cuff itself. Could do black, you could do white for this. You could also do some light gray, which is kind of like the silver color. So I'm going to go there just for some fun colors. And then on the main logo, which is the cuff roll, this one is kind of weird because you might be thinking that you actually have to select a different part right next to it for the backing color, but that comes way later. So it's kind of a weird in that sense. We're going to do black for that. And then the thumb as well has a bunch of different pieces on here. So we will go black for this, and just to show off the different options, you can also do gray, you can also do teal, but we will leave the white, I think, for right there, and then we'll do teal for the thumb. I went crazy on this last time. This is also pretty crazy. You can also check out the other view of it here so you can see kind of the inside, which will give you a better view of the palms when we get to there as well. I'm going to make this one a bit cleaner. So I don't like those colorways because it's too much. And yes, this is getting a lot into it, but I always find this process very fun. So we're going to change this one to black. So it is a bit more of a kind of uniform look. Obviously, this isn't exactly perfect to be what the Sharks old retro stuff looks like, but we're just having fun with this. So the inner line right here, I'm going to do all this gray, so it's all silver on the side. There is a lot of options here, which is really nice. I haven't been able to find a set of actual pro gloves yet that you can't match to like an actual team. Now, the old ones where they had lines down the fingers like right here and right here on like old Montreal gloves, can't really do those anymore because they were like Warrior specific designs, but you can do a lot on here, which is, I think, fantastic. We'll do teal on the backhand here, and the fingers are going to be a one choice, but this one on here is the outer pinky zone, so it's out here. So we will just do black throughout that as well. And then we get to the fingers themselves. We'll go black here as well. Now, one thing I don't like about this is the cuff on the original look. So when we check this off, we're going to change that cuff color just because that cuff color, I think, just looks too much of gray. So we're going to make that white. And then the main logo can stay white. And then we'll go back here. And then this is the part I was talking about for the actual stitching. So the stitching is the part behind it. So you change that and you can see how that ends up being different there. That is weird. I kind of wish that was right after the main logo, because that way you can go back and forth a lot easier just to see how it looks. But I think we are going to try something on here and see what teal looks like here, just for fun. And I have spent so much time doing this and going through this, and it is a blast, but it's also a huge time waster, and it's hard to decide what exactly you want. And I definitely went back and forth a lot. Once I found out I'm just going to do all the crazy colors, I ended up with what I did. It was much easier because I just basically selected down the line, but it is very enjoyable for this. So the binding part is all of the kind of cord all here. So this is a better view for it. And white will get dirty. Black is pretty standard of like what that will look like. Gray is okay. So it kind of depends on what you want to do for accents here. I love having accents on the thumbs and on the cuffs. Teal looks very clean in that sense, but I like having a different color on there. Just I think it looks slightly more interesting and gives you more of a unique look for it. So the palms are something I wish I could have ordered like 4 different sets of gloves for and to choose from. But this is also something that I have to criticize Pure Hockey for. When I ordered mine, the digital pitted was not an option. So this 0.8 mm light gray. This is that digital palm material that I talked about a lot. It was an actual real leather. The grip is fantastic. The feel is fantastic. It is very thin. It wears quickly. That wasn't an option when I actually did this, unfortunately, or else I would have selected it. What I ended up doing for the actual palm material here is I selected the AP Nash 0.8 millimeter dark gray. So that is this one right here. And I did that just to see how this Nash and 0.8 mm ended up performing compared to AX suede. Everyone kind of knows AX suede. And there's obviously options here, but I want to see what Nash performs like compared to others. It is very thin, and I will show where amount of it, and I'll talk about the feel of it when we get to that part of the video. But I want to try something different here, so that's why I went with this. As you can see here, you can really select out what you want on here. It would have been cool to get some crazy colored leathers in here, but that's like very, very specific things and stuff that aftermarket people like ITR Hockey do. For me now, if I was going to do this again, I would either go with a digital pittards or I would go with a thicker Nash or an AX suede. I really like digital, so I'd probably just end up going that route for this. We're going on to the next piece, which is the gusset finger tips, which is this part at the very tip of it. And I talk about finger gussets all the time. Usually retail ones are unfortunately spandex, so they're not very good. True is very good at this, putting actually good fingertips on their gloves. For this again, I would have done digital just because I like the feel of that material on my fingertips, but I went with an option here, which was AX suede 0.9 millimeters in light gray. So I went with this option right here, just because again, I wanted to feel that difference between the Nash and the AX suede here. So going on to the next one, we have the liners, which there's no options on this right now. And then we have palm overlay. Again, if you really want to get a really, really grippy palm, you can do 2 layers of digital, or you can select none, which is also very great. So you get a single layer palm. So I ended up choosing, I mentioned on it, the AX suede 0.9 mm in light gray. So that one, so it ends up matching my fingertips. And I'm just going to go back here though and reselect the digital just to do the AP Nash, just so we can see the contrasting actual colors and stuff on here. Again, you can really customize this. You can go black thin, black thick. You can go digital, and AX suede is what people know, and that AP Nash. This is supposed to be kind of a wear guard. Remember that, especially on the palm section, kind of right here with the butt end of a stick. So generally speaking, if you do want to do this part, you kind of want something a little bit more durable. With that said, if you really want all grip on sticks, so I find true retail sticks don't have a ton of grip. Digital here is fantastic for that because it is more grippy than the other materials. I find Nash and the AX suedes are pretty close for grip. I think Nash is a bit more grippy, but AX suedes lasts a bit longer, so it's kind of a give or take there. And next we are going to get onto the embroidery, and I did the jazz hands to match my gloves, but for here, let's do one just for fun. Actually, we'll do one better. Again, colors on here for the stitching. I'll show this off. We'll just do something contrasting for fun, which is white here. You have your number option as well, and I'll match the same one as I did previously. And again, you can choose your fun numbers and colors or whatever you want on here. This is fantastic. I love how they do this. I also really like how both of these are sewn on. My position for my number is slightly different because of the cuff. So if you select that Hischier cuff, it ends up being basically on this piece right here. And the actual embroidered name is on there as well too. But I really do love how this is embroidered and not just a sticker on. So thumb logo here as well, you can drag and drop on here. I obviously did my logo specifically for it, but I'm going to throw this one in just for fun, which is the Sharks logo. As you can see, and you can move this around, you can kind of see where that will be. This piece isn't finalized here. Now, I talked to them afterwards. They have an order process, which I'll kind of show you. That allows you to kind of move this and adjust it a bit to fit on the thumb a bit more because this logo isn't perfect for it. So they really give you an idea. Personally, I submitted an AI file because I have my Illustrator files, which is probably a better idea, or if you have EPS. But for this case, we'll just throw the PNG in here just for example. And then you also have your different glove sizes on here. And I do like how there's a 13.5 on here as well because people do have that kind of in between. But I will also talk about this as a fit thing when we get into the actual glove itself. I went with 14s. I have a thing where if a company ever sends me a pair of gloves, I always do 14s to be able to do my 3D hand test. Might be nice to see a 14.5, but with the size of what these 14s are, I don't really think there's going to be that many people needing that. And the 15s are going to be massive. So I don't really think they need to dive into that all that much. Select on that. And then we get into the really fun stuff, which is the glove specs.
So I've been talking to people at Pure trying to get all the information for this. Now, for the glove fit itself, for the tight, standard, and wide, they said that is the opening of the actual glove itself. So this is a bit harder to see, obviously, because it is that flex cuff, but basically it is how tight this cuff part is here. So if I grab this glove, it's basically how tight this opening is. So it will play tighter to your hand and overall more snug feel compared to one that is the looser one, which will expand that a bit more. So I was thinking maybe it was kind of the width of the palms or how deep this is, but it's not. It's this part right here, which will make it feel tighter as well though, because if this is longer, it means the palm has farther to stretch across it. So maybe the palms do get adjusted. From what I was told, it is the opening here and the overall cuff like tightness of this piece right here. If you have other experiences of that, please leave them in the comments and let people know.
It's a 4-roll, so I would want it tighter anyways. I like more snug fitting gloves, but this is obviously a very personal preference thing. If you want a very loose, very kind of sloppy feeling glove, wide is obviously the choice you want to go for there. Standard is just retail sizing. Good thing about these 4-roll pros is you can just try on the true 4-rolls and you get a good idea of what their baseline is. So that would be kind of the standard. So you can kind of go from there and see what you want for that. Going on to the gussets, you have Lycra, which is kind of that spandex that most retail gloves have. Feels very comfortable, allows the fingers to blow out. You won't get that blowout on these because they have the Nash tips or whatever material to choose there that isn't Lycra. But then you also have breathable mesh. I love having these options. I find spandex doesn't breathe all that well, and having the mesh gives you a bit more airflow through them.
This part right here, this gusset, is actually one of the reasons why this video has taken so long to come out. It has been over 20 days of Pure and I trying to get answers from True in regards to whether this is the stretch, so their Lycra option, or if it is the breathable mesh. Now, I didn't even notice this when I had them. So first of all, I ordered the breathable mesh. This is obviously a stretch thing. You can see it stretches and it flexes, and you can see my finger stretching through it, but it is also a lot more breathable, as you can see my finger actually like through the material, than a lot of the Lycra gussets on most gloves, which is why I didn't really notice it being a problem. I just figured it was something different. Now, this is normally what the breathable mesh kind of looks like. It's also called air mesh type thing. I love this option. It does breathe a bit better, but because those do have like kind of holes through it, it still breathes well. So you're not really losing one or the other. I think mine was done wrong. Now, I've had those gloves for a while, and we first found out about this being possibly wrong now like a year later. So they're way out of warranty. I don't expect True to do anything for that. If you order them right away and you caught something, I'm sure True and Pure will do something for you to help you with that. I'm not even trying to get a replacement or anything, but I just want to call that out. And Pure was the one that when they saw it and the picture of it, they immediately said, I don't think that's right, and reached out to True and then hasn't gotten a response. So obviously not the best thing there from the True side of things, but Pure is talking to them and trying to deal with it. And again, I'm not a normal customer, so I don't really expect companies to try to go above and beyond for this. this because I got a free pair of gloves. I'm trying to find out exactly what this is. I don't have that information yet, but I got to put this video out here. So if you have these in the breathable mesh and actually breathable mesh, please let us know in the comments and post a picture if you can. That would be really great. Or if you have a different lycra than what is on this one, also please post in the comments. That would also be great.
Gusset height is basically the height of the finger parts on here. So if you want standard, which is just one, you go there. And if you want taller ones, so if you have massive fingers and you want kind of the gussets to be a bit bigger, have that choice here. Personally, I also wish there was a smaller one here. A 3/4 would have been really nice. I'm a huge fan of snug gloves, so I would have chosen that, even though that might be a little smaller. This is very nice though for having a custom option, and it's kind of a more rare thing to get. Backhand pad is that padding in the back of your hand, which some people cut out. 10mm standard, as you can see, and you can get thinner. So if you do like that loose and sloppy fit, go that route for here. So for me, I would obviously pick the standard. Now this is the spot where I feel like it doesn't really have a huge effect on the cuffs I got, because this backhand pad isn't on the actual backhand of the glove, and it's just like the part of the hand that moves around. But if you want a traditional kind of backhand pad, 2mm is going to be very thin and basically just a liner without actually any padding or more snugness added to the glove. And now we are getting on to the real fun stuff, which is the cuff style. So we have multiple pieces on here: standard, floating cuff Hischier, floating wrist protector with lycra, and floating wrist protector with mesh. Now this would have been nice for me to be able to get all these different options to really show them off side by side, but Pierre has given me a PDF that gives the examples of these. But for me to go over this first, standard is just what the retail is. Floating cuff Hischier is that 11K style of cuff that I have shown off and which is on mine. Floating wrist protector with lycra is, think Warrior QRL flex cuff with spandex like material, so it stretches more. And then wrist protector with mesh is that QRL, same type of flex cuff, but that has a mesh instead of lycra. That way it doesn't really stretch all that much and gives you some breathability, but still moves with your wrist, but doesn't stretch really. That's the differences with those. Now, when we bring this PDF over here, it will give you a better example of what we are looking at. So this is going to be for the callus and the four-roll. You can just see it is just a standard cuff. Then floating cuff right here as well. You can really see, well, hopefully on this, that they have that spandex and lycra-like material right through there. And then if you want the mesh one, you get this in between the actual cuff and the glove itself. So instead of that lycra, you get this mesh material, which will give you a bit of breathability. And then finally, we have the Hischier cuff, which you can see on the Catalyst ones right there. And you can see my gloves, which is always fun to show off for the four-roll model. So you do have these awesome cuff options. Now, if I was doing this again, I would still order these cuffs. I love this flex cuff. I love all these different options. This used to be a crazy expensive thing to get. You'd have to order like 6 gloves of that spec to be able to get this cuff. So the fact that this, like both of these are custom on Trues and you only have to order one is honestly absolutely fantastic. So cuff height here, it does show up here for, as you can see, bigger, smaller, standard. Standard is going to be, you can see those in this PDF example of what the smaller one also looks like. So when we go up here, you can see how this one is a 1/4 inch less than standard. So the standard one really does come up further. You can see how this one is just slightly smaller than what this one is. This is awesome that this is available as an option. Again, you'd have to order like 6 gloves in the past to get stuff like this. So I'm just going to add cuff heights because I do like the extra cuffs for protection.
And for cuff height, I asked specifically about this. I was told it is for this cuff right here, but I'm pretty sure it's for the actual cuff right here as well. So I'll overlay the photo that I have on here, and I do think it is this inner cuff, but because this is the Hischier cuff, they said it wasn't part of this piece, but I think it was just kind of a misunderstanding of what this is. And if you have one of these extended or a shorter one, please share pictures of it. I'm very curious to see what it is.
For shot blocker, this is going to be that backhand piece. So you don't see this on here, but this backhand piece becomes kind of the 2-piece, which is on mine. Finally, you click finish on here. You see a summary of everything you want. You add it to your cart. Understand that is custom, and you submit it in there. And you can also save your design as well. So continue, and we go to save your design and new item, and you get a link to it, which is really nice. So that way you have that link, save it, you can open it over and over again, and that way you can go back to it. So you can keep making small changes and have a baseline and starting point, so you don't have to start all over again. Now, there is one more process. Once this is actually in the cart and you make a purchase, they will send you an email, which I'll show off, going over the details, and they will also go over the customization pieces like the thumb piece and say, hey, this won't be great, can you change this, which I'll show off. So this isn't the end step. Proceeding to checkout, paying and everything isn't the end step. They make sure that you're kind of happy with this, and I'll display all that there. But we'll also go over the Catalyst Pro gloves because there are some different options on here, and we'll do some very fun kind of colors on here, which is my second favorite overall colorway on this. And then size. So here's the big difference too with the Catalyst Pro. You can do smaller sizes, 11, 12, 13, 13 and a half. So if you do have smaller hand, and this is better for women or junior kids kind of coming up. Again, for me, I'm going 14 just because it's my sizing on there. Glove fit, obviously tight. We want that gusset to be breathable mesh, gusset height to be standard, which is odd that there's two options here, but it is what it is. It's standard. We go into cuff style. We're going to also do standard on this one. Cuff height, we're going to make this absolutely as short as possible, which would be that one. And then shot blocker, no, because we want to show off the backhand. And again, different options slightly here. Still amazing gloves. You can do ridiculous colorways, and they have some options down here as well, which is always a nice thing. So I mentioned there is a process afterwards. Now for me, it was very simple in terms of I knew what I was ordering, and I had all the things kind of planned out, and I knew all the specs I wanted, so mine was straightforward. But you get a confirmation email. They ask you to confirm your specs. You open this up, you go through your specs, see what you want to choose on here. Here is the other thing they attached, as you can see, this logo. And this wasn't the exact logo that I submitted. It was a different aspect ratio. So I submitted this logo to it, and it's harder to kind of see right now, but it's a lot wider, and it just wouldn't have looked as good on the actual thumb itself. So the process for that logo and kind of adjusting it and getting it to work correctly on the glove is done through here. Now, if you have questions on specs or anything, this would also be done through this process as well, and they can make changes. For me, it was good to go. I confirmed it. This is a great little piece on here just to make sure that someone actually does review your order with you, to go over anything if you have questions on. Obviously, this is done through online, so you don't have someone to kind of walk you through everything if you were kind of in person type thing. But this is a great extra step, so you know when you place that order, you will have everything on here you want, and not just like a hope and pray type thing. You actually do have confirmation of what you're doing, and you can ask a ton of questions if you want to.
So for this review, we'll do the 3D hand test, and we'll also do the stick grip test as well. And I will compare this to the cuff that this is obviously very based off of on the 12Ks or 11Ks or 13Ks or 14Ks, whatever model you have. These ones are specifically 12s. So through the process, I showed all the different color options you can kind of do and what I ended up choosing. I am also obviously showing that off here, and to give you an idea of really all the different color zones as well as what those colors look like. Now, I am not going to say this is Colorado blue or whatever in this video. I will have a post about this on my website, which you can check out. I will link it below. That does actually highlight and tells you exactly which ones of these are. So if you want to see a real version of like, oh, what color does this look like on a glove, and like compared to the navy, for example, you can see that. Obviously, I chose these colors to one, show off all the different breaks and all the different options. I did reuse some like here and here though, but I also did that to match this jersey, and even the 49 right there, as you can see in the customization, is the number I chose for this jersey. The colors on here look, I think, absolutely fantastic. They match this jersey I chose very well, including the logo that is on there. That is slightly stretched compared to what my logo is normally, but there is no way I was getting that total like shape to fit on here. So stretching it made more sense than making this really tiny, but that's a good view of the embroidery that they did on that logo. The cuff roll also looks fantastic with the Pro embroidery. Nice thick embroidery on there with the back layering as well. I think this thing looks absolutely fantastic. Obviously you choose your colors and you get what you want on there, but also having like the custom embroidery on here is a nice touch as well. I know some people want that, and I matched the jersey that was on there, as well as obviously matching the Jazz Solo Cup look, as well as being able to choose what color you want your binding to look like. The colorways and customizations on these things is absolutely nuts. You can do a lot of different designs you want. This really works really well for matching a ton of teams, like the Tampa Bay Lightning throwbacks, stuff like that, and even like old Sharks throwbacks. I had a hard time initially of what glove I was going to do, and then I'm like, I'm just going to go crazy and do all the blues to really select every single different option and color selection piece on there, which I think I did a pretty good job of, because you can really tell which ones you can separate. Now, the one disappointing part on this was the fingers weren't, I couldn't do different color fingers. Obviously, that's not a huge issue, but that would have been nice to be able to do individual finger pieces, at least fingers themselves, and not like each one of those. That's a pretty small nitpick. I don't think there's any teams right now doing fingers where it's just like 2 or 1 and 2 or the other. We saw that previously, like with Montreal Canadiens gloves and Warrior gloves, depending on the striping, but you don't really see that anymore. So I kind of understand why it went down this route. For specs and everything on this glove, this is their 4 roll. So this does, as you can see, have the shot blockers on top of it. I wanted to add that as an option just to see how the shot blockers played and to see if it's something I kind of recommend. I've liked true shot blockers previously in the past because they do have this kind of flexible part to them and they separate, so it kind of pulls it back together with the spandex. Interesting design. They've done it on their cats as well. With the catalyst ones, when you close your hand, you can also see it here moving. Catalyst ones move as well, so it doesn't act as a full, very hard outer shot blocker that just gets in the way and doesn't allow dexterity or mobility. This one really doesn't feel like it affects it at all, and it does move with it, as you can see. And under there you can see the rolls. There's one under there, and then there's two under here as well, so you do have that full roll design. Now previously with other gloves I had for True, they were way too many breaks on them and they were way too complicated. I talked about this way back on the Catalyst like XC9s. True has slimmed that down. This is basically the 4-roll retail glove, and it is very good in terms of design. You can see the pieces broken up on here. They move. You can kind of see them move like this and everything, and they really don't feel like they get in the way, and it does move with your hand a lot. And it is a really nice offering of having 2 3-piece fingers. True used to do it on the ring finger. I don't think that's totally necessary. It's a 4-roll glove, which is more of a traditional glove as well. So it makes sense that this is only 2 now. And you can see how that all works pretty well. And that is a nice feature to have when some companies like Bauer are just doing 2 pieces. And I think Warrior is doing that for their 4 rolls now too. So nicer piece on there, having that 3-piece. When you get to the thumb, it is also a nice flex thumb. You can see how much that moves, quite a lot in there. This is only a 2-piece, but it just works really well. It kind of feels like the 3-piece Bauer thumbs, which had extreme mobility on it, but you can see how much this moves and it makes sense and it works. Now they did do the thing that Sherwood does as well, where this doesn't have plastic inserts on it. This doesn't either. This part right here does. And the plastic is behind the thumb itself. And I'll do the protection test in a little bit on that, but I wanted to call it out right here. The side pieces and everything, just for the overall design, you have that foam underneath, you have a softer foam and then a more dense, and then a plastic insert that's going through all of it. Even on the side, soft foam, plastic insert, which is really good for the index finger. Solid index finger. It covers quite a lot, especially when you're holding your stick, so pretty good there. Going on to the other side, you pretty dense foam package over here with a plastic insert, and then smaller ones here, which are just plastic inserts, which fold with your hand like this. This could be thicker. I've seen it thicker in other companies. It's not the worst. It feels like the Warrior ones, what I feel like could be a bit better. So not the worst, but not the greatest on that there. Obviously a 4-roll, so nothing crazy going back here, but they do the nice piece with having that kind of separator here, because without that you'd have more of a gap. With that separator, it does close it off a bit, and it also helps push the fingers down a bit to allow it to be more mobile and moving with your hand more. Now you can also see that bottom roll right here coming down when you kind of close your hand, so it is acting and rolling out, and it works pretty well with that. And even the stock shape is pretty rounded, so it's not super flat, so it does move with your hand pretty good. And it's a 4-roll, but it doesn't feel like an old super boxy 4-roll. It does move with your hands and is pretty solid. It's still a pretty traditional fit, and I'll talk about that in a bit. And people who like 4-rolls will probably like this glove, but it's a bit better than I think older style 4-rolls, and it's a pretty solid combination of things. Now, this is where we get into the weird part, and this is the cuff. Obviously, this is not the standard cuff. This is called the Hischier cuff, and this was made, I think, to try to get Nico Hischier into it based on the naming convention. But it is very obviously the entire package of a 12K, 11K, 13K, 14K. It first came on a Reebok 11Ks. You can see how this is basically a 1-to-1 copy of what was done on the CCM models. Interesting that they just went that route. Seen it before with Warrior. True's doing it here too. Normally I don't like copying it. CCM doesn't even offer these anymore, so I don't really care it because this glove isn't offered at retail. It's offered obviously at Pro Stock still. People can still get it, but for retail you can't. So this I'm totally fine with. Everything on here does feel the same. You can see it has that inner piece, has that thumb extending right down there. And when we look at the CCM model, it has that inner piece right here, and that thumb ends up being kind of actually in here versus being on the outside of it. So this is like a piece going through there with that thumb there, where the CCM one, it just sits inside this piece right here. So slightly different in that sense, but the inner cuff is the same idea. You can see that inner hand piece moving with it right there. And you can see like there is a bit of the spandex right there. And with True, same thing right here. The True one actually does feel like it has more spandex here, so it is a bit softer in that sense. compared to this CCM, and this CCM one really isn't all that stretchy, but I did have this backhand thickened for me through ITR, so a bit different in that sense because this is slightly not stock. My palms aren't stock either, just to fit me a bit better. But when you look at the OG Reebok ones, it was kind of the same thing. This spandex right here is not quite as stretchy as what is on the True one, but it does the same thing overall and pretty well acts the same. This inner cuff piece has some foam in here for this all the way through as well, which is honestly more padded than what is on here. These just feel like they're bindings, where the one, the True, actually feels like it is a bit more padded. So this is all just like binding, holding pieces together, where this actually feels like it might actually do a bit more in terms of structure. It's not really gonna do much. It might just be that the material that they're using on here is a bit stiffer, but it's solid all around. Now for the actual materials through here, so this is an XP, so I think this might actually be D3O. So I'll look at the stock one because that's a better comparison, where this is like a hard foam throughout it, and on the True it might be slightly softer foam in terms of like actual density, but it does feel like it's thicker between it, and it is basically the same way all throughout, which is amazing to me. And then it also has like this outer piece. It comes to the undercuff, which is basically identical and feels very similar, including this bottom stitching right here. You can see the width differences though on the True one. This is that 4 roll, so it might be a bit wider, but this is a 15-inch glove. This is a 14-inch for True, and you can really see the thickness difference on here, at least the flattened difference, but the overall palm design is pretty similar to each other, as you can see. And it does have that nice little undercuff connection piece, which we've seen on CCM a lot. And this undercuff and everything is awesome. I love this. I'll go into some more details on how the mobility and stuff works on this, but this inner cuff piece right here everywhere is very similar to one another. And even on this Reebok one, there's no plastic inserts, so it's very similar all the way through. And it feels like an exact clone. And it's pretty awesome, to be honest. The only real difference I can find between these cuffs at all is this one piece right here. So where this binding is has a gap. So right here, I can just go through. There's no padding there. And on the CCM Reebok ones, there is like a slight gap when you go right here, but this doesn't actually flex like all the way out. So there's really a gap. It fits more tight there, where this one does come a bit looser. Is that an issue for protection? Maybe, but that is going to be such a hard thing to hit. You're going to hit something on here and it is solid, and I have no complaints for it whatsoever. Now, when we look at that inner cuff as well, you can see how much of a flex cuff this and what this really does. Same with what was on the 12K. So you can see how much that comes out. So you get like zero interference. The whole backhand of the glove follows you because it is an inner glove. It is totally separate from the backhands until like right here. So you can really pull that out. So you can see the ridiculous wrist mobility on there. Awesome design. Even the undercuff here, all of these little segments. I don't think it needs to be as crazy, but it works. And when you wear elbow pads on this, it also flexes that way out too. So that's why you have those segments there. So while I think it doesn't need to be as crazy as this, it works, and it's not a design I think they should really change. CCM did a really, well, Reebok did a really good job on these, and I can't believe they ditched this design, to be honest, at retail and everywhere. But this brings it back, and it is so good for that and is amazing for that. So you have zero interference all through it. Now, for actual elbow pad interference, obviously, if you're wearing something massive like this, it is going to interfere. You can see how though it even does open up, and it is kind of doable with these massive ones. These are FT6 Pros. They've slimmed these down since then because they were so big. One thing I can't wear with these is my slash guards I have worn in the past. Wearing them under here, which helps keep elbow pads up, push the glove down off my hand basically. So I don't do that because it feels like my gloves are falling off. But even with massive elbow pad like this, you can see how the cuff works, and it does get out of the way. So it's not the worst. But if you have a normal size elbow pad, which these are my Ultra Tacs, you can see how you're getting a lot of coverage with that, and it works pretty good. It doesn't really get in the way. It's just when they're super massive like this, but that's more of an elbow pad issue. These elbow pads have like issues with almost all gloves, but flex cuffs are great. And even with these massive ones, the flex cuffs do work pretty well. For this cuff, it really doesn't have all that much for sliding over. It does have this, how it's angled. And when you go like this, you can see it does kind of move over a little bit, but it doesn't really ever feel like it's getting in the way. It feels like the rest of the glove, like just your thumbs getting in the way when you do this. And the backhand, it doesn't really get in the way either. It doesn't move really easily over it, but because that backhand is so separated, you can see it just moves fine anyways, and it doesn't really ever feel like it's blocking anything. Going on to this outer roll, this is one of the things I feel like might be slightly different compared to their pro stocks, at least some pro stock, because this does not have a plastic insert. You can flatten this a bit. It doesn't flatten nearly what those new CCM gloves do, but this is a pretty solid, dense foam all the way through. It does have two densities, so it has a bit softer behind it. You can definitely feel it on the backside here. and a more dense one on top, and you can kind of see the shape of it. The CCM ones did have a plastic insert. You can see kind of the edge right here. It's pretty thin, and it is also, well, I should say the Reebok one for that, but I'm pretty sure it is on the CCM one there. So slight difference on that. This is more of their retail cuff. I don't have a problem with that. I'll talk about the protection on this in a second. Onto the palms. I am going to overlay. I can't remember off the top of my head what this name of the palms are, and I showed you through the customizer all the different options. This is a part where this is going to be hard for people to choose, and there's actually a few options I wish they had. They did not have a digital, which is this really interesting. So it's the red material here. It's an actual leather. It's super grippy. The company that actually makes this doesn't actually exist anymore. They're called Pittards. So digital is going to be harder and harder to come by. LC materials aren't going to be quite the same. This material has been one of the most wearing palm materials. I think it is the thinner one. Again, I'll put all that info up there, but you can definitely see what that looks like. And this is me always using either lizard skins, Tacky Mac, or my own butt end cover. So it's not tape. And even the bottom hand, you can see some of that there. This is pro palm to the extreme. And there's nothing else to really say about that. This is wearing out a bit and does have kind of the wear on here, and you can see it. And that is just from normal wear. And I really take care of myself in my gloves. Now you are going to see some fraying here. I think I have a picture of it. If I do, I'll overlay it. So there was just some stitching that was left exposed here. It was getting caught. I cut it off with scissors. It wasn't the best overall finish, and something I really wish they kind of dialed in a little bit. True, needed to kind of fix that a little bit. Very minor thing in the grand scheme of things. I have had to cut pieces off that from different gloves before, but if you're spending this much on a custom glove, you obviously want that to be perfect. Would that change my mind on it? No, me cutting that is fine. Me wearing this a bit is fine. They're hockey gloves, but this does show you what type of palms you're getting on here. These are very, very pro stock palms, and you can expect wear. Even on my bottom hand, you can see where that wear is. The palm design itself is also very similar to what that awesome design was I recently talked about on the Bauer Flylight gloves, where that overlay doesn't actually come up onto this part, so you get awesome palm feel with your stick. That's the case here. So the overlay is more down here and not on your actual fingers where you actually do the grip. So this will kind of be on the butt end, and this will actually be more on the stick. Now on my top hand, obviously this is kind of the butt end spot, and it sits right there, and that's why there's some wear there. And when we look at the like pro stock CCM, you can kind of see where this is coming from. Well, Reebok on this case, where it does come down more, but the True makes it like very noticeable how far it comes down. So the overlay of the palms actually end up being based on the cuff part and the glove itself. Now I think the overlays on both the 4-roll and the Catalyst are similar, so they'll be kind of similar to this design, which is an old pro stock True glove, but it just comes across the fingers in a more traditional manner. It looks very close to what I've seen on their retail gloves. But when you do choose this Hischier Flex cuff, you get that 11K overlay, which you can see very similar design here, like I mentioned, and that's with this cuff. I don't know what comes with the Flex cuff from the Warrior style, so it's more of a rounded thing. I don't know if that is something totally different, or just because this is a very unique design, where the Warrior one, it's a normal True glove, which is very close to their retail designs, because it's just like an extension on it and not the whole inner piece, totally different, and the whole backhand totally different like this, and the thumb's totally different, that it just matches what those designs are. And this specific cuff gives you the very specific ones. I don't have the answers for that. I'm sure Pure can answer those questions if you really deem them, but you'll have probably something more like this. But there also is that option on there to do the overlay delete as well. So you would just have a single layer palm, and that would be it. So you don't even have that overlay on there if that is the choice you want to go with. So it does follow the 12K a little bit, but you can see how much more aggressive it is in that sense. And the thumb piece, as you can see, is also very much the same as what is on the 11 and 12K, to the point of it has a little kind of punch outs as well. For the textured grip test, we have our Bauer stick that I use for this all the time. Remember, buy your hockey gear through Pure Hockey, who made this video possible. Click link in the description, make a purchase, supports the channel, gives me a kickback. That way I can keep making more content and do more reviews like this. Otherwise, if you want to support the channel without anything hockey specifically, check out the links in the description to Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee. Everything through any of those links always comes back into the channel, so I can keep making more content and do more reviews. And to test this out, when we put it on here, you can't feel the texture on the overlay, but you can feel it on the rest of it. And that's where I kind of talked about how that overlay comes below your finger pads right here. And that is, so when you are grabbing that, you can feel it on that bottom part. When I'm holding it like this, I can feel it on my fingers all easily, absolutely easily on the fingers. And I can also feel it right here as well. So when you are holding this, you can really feel that texture all the way through. You don't notice it as much down here, but really, I think most of the pressure is going to be on this finger and down here, but you can feel that a lot, and it feels really good. On the thumb, you don't notice it much on the thumb. It does have that double layer. So when it is on there, it does feel a bit smoother than what a single layer does for sure. It's fine, and that's kind of expected for thumbs, but that could be a single layer, but it's matching the CCM model, so I don't really mind that at all. Palms feel awesome. The grip on them is pretty good. It's nothing like super, super grippy. If I had with some of those sticks like the old Trues that don't have grip, this thing did feel pretty sloppy, but almost all gloves, but the super grippy actual leather palms like this one, I notice issues with the True. This one feels totally fine and is pretty standard in terms of grip and your retail level. Really good for texture coming through, and not the best for wear, which I kind of covered already. But again, you can choose different palm materials on there because you can see this part of the palm itself is working better than what this part is for actual wear. Make mind of that and note of that when you're ordering these. So for foam package on the fingers themselves, you have a soft foam, a pretty dense foam, and then plastic insert throughout them. And it feels like that is the same package everywhere. With those 4 rolls, you can really only feel the bottom one, but it does feel like it has a softer one, a denser one, and then that plastic insert. So same thing on the fingers. And obviously you have this back padding as well. And now this back padding has a softer foam underneath and then a plastic insert on top. You can see kind of how that layering is there. And you do also have nice little pieces on here for extra through here. For the protection test on this, I have taken pucks off this. You can see on the backhand, and there should be some on the fingers too. I've had 0 issues with this glove, and they're honestly one of the best gloves I have. There's one right here as well, but we'll do the stick test, which obviously isn't a full test, but it will give us a good idea on the thumb. That is pretty solid. Now you do feel some up here. It's not Sherwood bad, but we're the point where I kind of do wish they had a plastic insert in here as well, just to give you a bit more on that. And when we compare it to the XP glove, which is the CCM, which is just nuts, like, you actually feel more of a sting on this. It's both pretty good. I would probably prefer the CCM one a bit more on that. So go on to the side pieces here. You feel it, but it's pretty good overall. And doing that on CCM, you feel it down here, up here, the CCM, these are XP too. So this is like the best one. It does have more protection than what is up here. Now, backhand, I mean, you barely feel anything with that extra blocker on there. And then here, you do feel it more on this with that D30 full piece. But again, shot blocker versus not, it's not really a fair comparison. Doing the fingers, that is so good on these. They're so excellent. Now the full D30, awesome fingers. Both of those are excellent. Honestly, I can't really complain on this one and would say that this is honestly that much worse. They're very, very close to each other. Now, the one thing, and this is a weird caveat, D30 actually like freezes in the really cold weather. So you play a really cold rink, it will get really hard. And I don't know what the protection on this will be when it's super, super hard. It doesn't even heat up enough with your hands to make it super warm and get that full properties that D30 wants. So this one works really good and honestly feels fantastic doing it. So huge props to True on that one. Now for this cuff, usually when there's spandex back here, it leaves a gap, but this is not going to leave a gap. So in terms of cuffs, that is probably the best testing cuff I've done because it just has this layer, it has that little piece in there, and then it has this layer of foam underneath it as well. If there was a plastic roll in here, it would be even better. That's gonna add some weight. I wouldn't mind seeing it, but it's not the end of the world. And honestly, this is actually worse, and you can feel more of that impact through there. Like, it's not bad, and it's still very good, but the True, I think just being, you can see how much like more out it is. Bit thicker overall, does a really, really good job on that. On the inner cuff, you feel that. It's not great. It's not the thickest thing, but again, that's like that extra slash cuff, which should be something on your elbow pads as well compared to this. It honestly, this one feels better than what is on the CCM one, which is pretty nuts. So True did a really good job on that too. And under cuff, you shouldn't really get hit on. There's not a lot there, but it's pretty close to it. I'd say CCM a bit better there. Awesome overall for that. And when we look at these finger designs and everything, the 3 pieces really does give you great mobility and dexterity. And you can even see compared to the 11Ks that these are kind of based off of. Awesome for overall coverage. And when we look at that too, because this is a 3-piece, you could get like a stick in here, but it's not going to get past here. So they did a really good job of that. Same with this backhand piece up here. You could get a stick in here, but because this block is in there, it's really not letting it go in all the way, and a solid job with that. The one thing I love about the CCM gloves, they don't really replicate anymore, is they did basically 4-piece fingers, because if you look at it, you get this one too. So when it breaks, you can see how that part all moves down too. So it really does act like 4-piece fingers. And that gives you like 0 spots missing, maybe a little bit here, but it's not really going to go through anywhere. So that design was fantastic for that. This one works pretty well, but obviously this is a 4-roll, so this piece isn't going to go all the way down there. Speaking of that with Dexterity, this glove with the flex thumb, it's actually better than what this one is. This one's harder because this doesn't have a flex thumb at all, so it just moves with you. There are some options of these. I can't remember the number exactly, but might be the 13s that does have a flex thumb here. This one doesn't. So while this works, it's not the best. And this one actually works better because that flex thumb allows it to move in more. But if it's a 4-roll, so if you get the Catalyst one or their actual like one that's closer designed to this, it will work even better than this does. But this one is still pretty solid for that. Now with those fingers as well, you have basically the best spec you can get for fingers. You have some spandex right here, but it's also a breathable one. So it is flexible, but it has like pretty good holes in it. So you breathe through it, and it does have the same material as what is on the palm here for fingertips. So it doesn't really allow it to blast past. Really good Nash fingertip gussets. One of the best actual pro stock designs. Actually better than what these ones were, which are just the whole Nash all the way through. So really great design there, and you can customize this. Now I also have to call this out. The fingers, you can see they do kind of split open a bit, and they kind of twist a little bit when you do that. Now I've had this issue with other gloves as well. This 11K, it kind of happens on the index finger as well. I don't notice these at all when actually wearing these and using them. You can see when they close, they're totally fine. Even like this, they feel totally fine. They do look like they're spreading out a bit and kind of not totally straight, especially when you really flex this out. It feels like it's turning. It doesn't look the best here. When I actually use them, I have no issues whatsoever. I've never noticed the blocks being out of place or the fingers being out of place or it being annoying at all. It never feels like it's twisting. It doesn't feel like the actual pads are kind of twisting all over the place. I have these pair right here where the inner liners actually do feel like they're twisting all over the place. And you can see how the index finger is twisted right here a little bit. And when you look at this one, it looks better than what the true ones do. But when I'm actually wearing these gloves, I have 0 issues whatsoever. But obviously you would like these to be totally straight and not going anywhere and totally lined up, but they aren't. Now, one thing about this glove, and it kind of also ties into this glove, is the heat on it. And it's part about that breathability. This glove does retain heat. Same with this one. Both of these are pretty hot to wear. They don't have the airflow through it like the AirTech on CCM and the new Warriors do. So they're pretty warm in that sense. You do have some breathability on here, but this keeps everything closed. So the heat doesn't really come out all that much. And because this glove is so loose fitting, which I'll get to in a second, I actually end up shoving more things on the back. So this was an insert from a true XC9 glove. Basically, I just throw these back in the backhand like this. And that way I have a more tight backhand. So the gloves don't feel like they're falling off as much. So doing that ends up making these hotter as well. So it's not a great thing there. But obviously that's a personal preference thing. And I use this one on my left hand, which is a shot blocker from an FT1 glove. So, or HJJS CCM glove. That's a preference thing. And I do wish that that backhand piece, so you can choose a thickness in the backhand on, I think, some models. I wish there was option to do more because I would like this back piece to be thicker. It's one of the pieces I chose on this glove. So I got ITR to basically double or triple the thickness on this. So this is a lot thicker than what a normal 12K would have. And when you look at this one, you can see just this one's pretty thin overall back here. But that was just to make it so these gloves fit tighter on my hands because I love that snug feel. This one being a 4-roll, obviously I knew I wasn't going to get that, but I wanted to test a 4-roll and a flex cuff because I thought it would be a very interesting combo. And Carlson is currently doing it in the NHL. So I'm like, yeah, I kind of want to try that spec glove. So when I shove that in there, it makes it even warmer than they are normally, but that is kind of to be expected with this style of glove. A few things you could do to change it is adding kind of air mesh through it. That's getting really nitpicky in specs, and I don't expect a company to really get there, to be totally honest. Now, when comparing these two gloves next to each other, I took a 15 because it's closer in size to this, even though it's still, because it's a 4-roll, it's like absolutely massive. For weight, they're, I'm gonna say, pretty close to each other, and they feel pretty close to each other. This glove isn't a super light glove, but it's not a super heavy glove. Now, when I get my XP model, CCM right here, and compared to this true one, honestly, the true one feels lighter than the XP one on the CCM does. What's one thing from the leather palms as well as the D3O in there, but this glove feels pretty light for what it is. And honestly, I think that's a lot to do with like the cuff being a bit lighter than what you might have expected without a thick plastic insert, but everything on here feels really light and really nice. Zero complaints with that whatsoever. And again, shot blocker, so you can take it off, it's gonna be lighter. And if you want a tighter fitting glove, you can do that as well and not get a 4-roll, so it'll be a bit smaller, which should be a bit lighter as well. Now, for overall fit, we will take our 3D printed hands on here. I'll throw them in there, the 15 on the right, the 14 on the left, and we will see how long the fingers are and if this glove fits true to size, or if you need to size up or down like some pro stock models do. So on the left, we have the 14. On the right, we have the 15. When we look at the 15, the fingers are just at the end right there and at the end there and a little bit pushing past here. And this is a 14-inch glove, which I think it will say right there. It does. 14-inch glove, 15-inch hand, and you can see it's not coming through there. And on the other one, you can see you have a gap on a 14-inch glove. So this is very similar to what I've kind of talked about with CCM, where you kind of have half a size. And this is a 14 on CCM, and this fits me like a 14 and a half. And it fits me well. I don't blast out the ends of them. This is a bit tougher because it is a 4-roll. From my remembering of the true 4-roll, this fits the same as their 4-roll retail one. And I tried one of those on and I felt like I'd be totally in a 14 of that as well. And you can see the smaller hand coming there, and that bigger hand is not blowing past the tips like you see at retail gloves normally. So this does feel like it fits a bit bigger than a normal 14. When I put this on, my fingers are right at the kind of tips and right at the tips, but not blowing past at all. And when I wear them as well, it comes back a bit and it doesn't blow back the tips because they are a bit looser. So it kind of feels like my hand's coming out of it a bit, but these fit, I would say, half a size big from what you'd expect on a 14. I have other videos on other true pro stock gloves, not the 4-rolls, that should give you a good idea for sizing. I'm pretty sure it will pass onto this custom one. I'm pretty sure they're coming from the same place and it's the pro options on here. So I'm pretty sure it's the same overall glove. So it should match. Don't quote me on that. Unless it's right, then quote me on it. Unfortunately, I can't give you the details because I would need to wear them to see, and I don't have another pair of those. So hard to do in that sense. Now for overall fit, these are boxy. You can see they're 4-rolls. They're pretty traditional 4-rolls. The fingers really aren't traditional 4-rolls because they do have those breaks on them, but they play like 4-rolls and feel like 4-rolls, and they come off very easily. And that's where I'm kind of talking about where I want more backhand stuff in here, because these fall off. And when I wear them without it, it does feel like they just fall off. Like, look, they just fall off my hands. So these are very loose fitting. Obviously, going with the Catalyst line and the actual anatomical line will be tighter than this. This one is the looser 4-roll, more traditional fit with a crazy cuffs. Kind of have an idea there of what you would prefer and what you would want for fit. That is about it for my review of the true jazz hands. This is obviously a 4-roll with a very custom CCM 11K called the Hischier style of cuff. They have different cuff options, which I showed off. They have a bunch of different options on there, which I also showed off through the customizer. This is simply an absolutely fantastic glove. I love wearing these. If they weren't as a loose fitting, they would easily be my favorite pair of gloves. But besides that, these are absolutely fantastic. I've never once felt like the shot marks on there. Anything through these gloves, they feel great. The palms feel excellent in terms of puck feel. Durability is a bit questionable, but you can get different palm options. So just don't select this one and maybe more select the palm overlay option if you want to go that route. These are fantastic. Yes, they are very expensive. Gloves now are getting stupidly expensive. Obviously, these are more so because they're custom, and look at all the different details you can do and the colors you can do, and you can really select these and make them your own. I'm always a huge proponent of going pro stock. It's why I have a pair of these, obviously flex cuffs, and I paid a bunch of money to get new palms put into them because they were terrible. And then I also have these, which are a bit too big for me, but are awesome colorway. Now, if you want a specific glove and a fit type with a bunch of different specs, you can get that with these, and it's a single glove order, which is pretty nuts. So yes, you're paying a premium. For me, I think that premium is worth it. I buy a lot of gear though, but if you want something very specific like this, and you want specific colors, and you want specific tech, and you want like a specific custom pieces like this is amazing. Or if you want a totally different cuff and matches one of the options they have, also amazing. This is the way to do it. Check out the link through Pure Hockey. It gives me a kickback as well. Shows them that sending me these gloves to do a review on, make content on, was worth it on their end. Hopefully we can do more. I would love to try out the Catalyst ones and go through different specs on these and different palms and stuff like that. It's a ton of money. I don't expect Pure to do that whatsoever, but that'd be really cool down the line, maybe when there's a new model out. But these are fantastic. This is basically getting a pro stock glove that you can order yourself. Huge thanks to Pure for helping me make this possible and for doing this. If this video was helpful and you make a purchase through Pure, obviously let them know on social media as well as through the link, which gives me a kickback and shows them that this video and stuff like this is useful for them. If you buy like say True gloves because of this, please let True know on social media as well that my reviews are helpful. I would love to look at all their gloves and stuff, their new retail gloves. Let them know it's helpful. Hopefully I can get on the radar and do more videos like this and make more content. Thank you very much for watching this video. Remember, subscribe to me on YouTube, follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Links are in the description. Remember, buy your hockey gear through Pure Hockey, who made this video possible. Click link in the description. Make a purchase, supports the channel, gives me a kickback. That way I can keep making more content and do more reviews like this. Otherwise, if you want to support the channel without anything hockey specifically, check out the links in the description to Patreon and buy me a coffee. Everything through any of those links always comes back into the channel so I can keep making more content and doing more reviews. Thank you very much for watching and take it easy.
You're watching HockeyReviews.ca.